Good morning, everyone. Let's kick off our morning by going over our sight words. Okay, for our sight words today, they're going to appear on the screen and we are going to spell them together as the letters drop off of your screen. So spell out loud with me at your house. Family, Family, family. Friends, Friends, friends. Off, OFF, off. School, SCHOOL, school. Have, HAVE, have. Picture, PICTURE, picture. Look, LOOK, look. Cold, COLD, cold. Know, KNOW, know. Because, BECAUSE, because. Today, we're going to look again at our phonics pattern. Yesterday, we talked a little bit about how this week's pattern was going to be a long vowel pattern. We talked about how we have a consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel. And this week, our final vowel, the last vowel in our word, is going to be the silent E that makes our first vowel say its name. When two vowels get together, it is like a game. When the first vowel speaks, it says its letter name. So we're going to read some nonsense words together, and then we're going to add a silent E, and we're going to see if that changes the way that we read our words. Pock. We have consonant, vowel, consonant. When we add our silent E, our word becomes poke. Hom. When we add the silent E, our word becomes home. Rop. When we add the silent E, our word becomes rope. Nose. When we add the silent E, our word becomes nose. So as you can see, for our vowel pattern this week, we have consonant, vowel, and our last vowel is the silent E that makes our first vowel say its name. All right, for grammar today, we're going to look at a new grammar skill. Yesterday, we looked at prefixes, specifically prefix dis. Today, we're going to be looking at nouns. So, what is a noun? A noun is a person, place, or thing. Pause your video and repeat to yourself what a noun is. These words are nouns because they're people. For example, we have Jennifer, teacher, waitress, boy, student, grandma. Pause your video and create a list of 5 nouns that are people. These words are nouns because they are places. Florida, Clinton, school, store, McDonald's, bedroom. Pause your video and see if you can create a list of 5 nouns that are places. And these words are nouns because they are things. Ball, pencil, cat, computer, cereal, shirt. Pause your video and create a list of 5 nouns that are things. Every sentence must have at least one noun. Sentences can have more than one noun, but they must have at least one. We are going to look at some sentences. As we are looking at these sentences, I want you to pause your video and identify the nouns in the sentences that we are reading. John rode the bus to school. Pause your video and say the nouns from our sentence out loud. The nouns in this sentence are John, is a person, bus, that is a thing, and school, because it's a place. Our next sentence says, Mom drove to the grocery store. Pause your video and identify the nouns in the sentence. Our nouns are mom, who's a person, and grocery store, because it's a place. Our third sentence says, the puppy barked at the boys. Pause your video and identify the nouns in this sentence. We have puppy, because it's a thing, and boys, because they are people. And our last sentence says, the leaves fell off of the old tree. Pause your video and see if you can find all of the nouns in our last sentence. The nouns in our last sentence are leaves, because they are a thing, and tree, because it's also a thing. Great job identifying nouns in our sentences. Yesterday for reading practice, we read a story together called Owl Moon, and we looked at the 3 different parts of our story. We looked at the beginning of our story, the middle of our story, and the end of our story. To review, let's talk about the beginning. The beginning of the story tells us how the story starts, about our characters, and about the setting. The middle of our story tells us the problem and gives us details. And the end of our story tells us how the problem was solved and how the story ends. So we're going to read a passage together in just a minute, and we're going to look at the beginning of our story, how our story starts. We're going to find our characters and our setting. We're going to look at the middle of our story. We're going to see if there's a problem. We're going to identify some of the details of our story. And then we're going to look at the end of our story. If there was a problem, how was the problem solved, and how does our story end? So the passage we're going to look at today is called A Walk for Penny. We're going to look at the beginning, the middle, and the end, the 3 parts of every single story. And then we're going to put some of these events in order, depending on if they happen at the beginning of our story, the middle of our story, or the end of our story. Okay, so let's read this passage. You can read it together with me out loud at your house if you would like. A Walk for Penny. Abby is always very helpful. In fact, she helps her grandpa every Sunday. Abby's grandpa gives her $5 for helping. Abby puts the money in her piggy bank. She has been saving up to buy a pretty doll she saw in the window at the store. Today, Abby will help her grandpa by walking his dog. Penny is a good dog and she loves to go for walks. Ruff! Sounds like Penny is ready to go, said Grandpa. Abby hooked the leash on Penny and they went out the door. Abby walked her around the block. Before long, Penny was tired. She was panting with her tongue out. Abby got some water, and then they headed back home. When they walked in the door, Abby's grandpa handed her $5. Abby smiled. She has enough money to buy her doll now. Thank you, Abby said as she gave her grandpa a big hug. All right, let's look back at the beginning of our story. I want you to pause your video in just a minute, and I want you to name the characters of our story aloud. Who is in our story? If you said that our characters were Abby, Abby's grandpa, and Penny, great job. What is Abby saving up for in our story? If you said that she was saving up to buy a pretty doll, awesome. How does Penny plan on saving up for her doll? She walks Penny. Good job. And at the end of our story, how do you think that Abby feels now that she's earned the money for her doll? If you said that Abby was happy, good job. It does say in our story that Abby smiled, and we know that smiling shows that we're happy. So now we're going to put some events from our story in order based on whether they happened at the beginning, the middle, or the end. So our instructions say draw a line from each box on the left to the correct event on the right. So on the left, we see beginning, middle, and end. And on the right, we see these three events. Abby walked Penny around the block. Abby has enough money to buy her doll now. And Abby puts the money in her piggy bank. So before we start drawing lines, let's find each of these events in our story. So I'm going to mark each of these events in a different color to help me see where they happen in my story. So the first event that I want to mark, I'm going to mark in green. I'm going to see if I can find the sentence that says, Abby puts the money in her piggy bank. Pause your video and see if you can find the sentence that says, Abby puts the money in her piggy bank. We can find this first sentence in the first paragraph. It says, Abby puts the money in her piggy bank, and we have marked it green. Let's look at this next event that we are going to mark in yellow. It says, Abby walked Penny around the block. Pause your video and see if you can find the sentence, Abby walked Penny around the block in the paragraph. We see this sentence in our fifth paragraph. It says, Abby walked her around the block. And let's look at this last event. We're going to mark it in red. It says, Abby has enough money to buy her doll now. Pause your video and see if you can find the sentence that says, Abby has enough money to buy her doll now. This sentence can also be found in our fifth paragraph, but just a little bit later on. So now that we have each of these events color-coded in our passage, let's see if we can match each event to the beginning, the middle, and the end. Okay, so the first event that we highlighted in green that happens first in our story says Abby puts the money in her piggy bank. Okay, that's going to be what happens at the beginning. It's the very first of these three events that happens in our story. Our middle event is what we highlighted in yellow. Abby walked Penny around the block. So we're going to draw a line from middle to Abby walked Penny around the block. And the last sentence, or the last event that we highlighted and marked in our story, we marked in red. This sentence is Abby has enough money to buy her doll now. Out of the three events, it's the one that happens last, and it's the one that happens at the end of our story.